Today is a travel day. We're going to be traveling from Neha Bay all the way over to the North Cascades National Park. Here as we're leaving the Neha Bay area, and we're traveling across country about 2.5 hours, went through Port Angeles, and we found ourselves over at Port Townsend. And here's Port Townsend. This is where we're going to get on the ferry boat and travel across to Keystone. And as you see, beautiful day. Had to wait about an hour. Supposed to have been there at 9:30. The ferry boat was a little late because of the fog. It was pretty heavy fog. As you can see, the fog's laying there. And that was just a ferry boat, but that was not the boat we were waiting for. Here comes our boat. You can see it's coming out of the fog, moving pretty quick. And as you can see, he's approaching the dock. To me, I thought it was very rapid. But the guy knows what he's doing. This one does. The thing that was interesting to me is once they docked, if you'll notice the two semi-trucks on board, as the ferry boat docks, somehow it connects to the dock and is not floating. It's stationary, because those 80,000 pound trucks, as you'll see as they pull off, the boat doesn't move a bit. As you see here, this is what I found was interesting. That boat never moved, and when they left, you felt it turn loose and start floating again once we got loaded. But they unloaded the thing, and then we've got all the cars loaded, packed in there pretty good. I didn't think I was going to make it on that first trip, but they got them all in there. And as we leave the dock, give you some shots of the boat itself. Very spacious, extremely comfortable. It did have a little bit of a rocking motion to it, but it was still quite comfortable. Took us about an hour to go across. Really didn't seem like that long, but we crossed over and got unloaded very quickly. What I thought was really interesting is they serve food on board, and in a moment you'll see the galley, and the smell of warm cinnamon rolls was very enticing. And there were quite a few people indulging. You could go up on the upper deck and get a really good view. I tried to give as many shots of that as I could. This is my second time to be aboard a ferry boat with my car, and I was still kind of nervous about it, but we made it just fine both times. Video's kind of rough.
For security reasons, we ask that passengers not leave any backpacks, luggage, packages, or other personal belongings unattended during this crossing. Upon arrival at our final destination, all passengers must disembark the vessel. In the event of a shipboard emergency,
That's the shoreline of where we left.
sounded on the ship's general alarm, followed by the same signals on the ship.
Interesting, there were lots of personal pleasure craft out in the middle of the lake. That's really not a lake. It's actually the Strait of San Juan de Fuca, and the Salish Sea is what they call it, but it's the area between Mount Vernon and Port Angeles, just north of Seattle. Here we go in the galley, all kind of pastries available. purchase sandwiches, drinks. Well stocked. And we're beginning to get to the end of the journey. And I noticed the water was really choppy in this area, so it's got to be more shallow area there because the water's so choppy. And there's lots of campers. And this whole trip across this part of the United States, every single campground was just packed terribly full of campers and motorhomes and campers, tents, and the hikers were very prevalent. Notice the boat doesn't move as I pull up on the ramp, so it's pretty cool. I think it costs $14, a little over $14 to take that ferry boat across. On the video, the GPS is turn left here.
Turn left.
But if you'll notice, I didn't turn left. And the reason for that is I wanted to go get a picture at this spot so you could see the ferry boat. Then I turned around and went back to the left like I was supposed to. And just about a mile or so, there was Fort Casey. And I stopped to see that. It's an old Army fort. Well preserved. Then we get back on the road again and start traveling across country. And we're taking Highway 20. We're going to go through Mount Vernon and Burlington. We'll go through Hamilton. Lots of farmland, rolling countryside. And then we get up to a pass. This is called Deception Pass. And the water flows in and out as the tide goes in and out. And the flow of the water is really treacherous and has been for years, ever since the 1700s. But in a moment, you'll get to see how quickly. They said that water flows in and out at about 9 miles an hour, which is pretty rapid. So imagine the Indians when they were trying to paddle canoes, or the sailors when they were trying to sail a sailboat in there. They could get trapped inside, couldn't get out until the tide changed. Very beautiful countryside. The bridge is probably 1,000 feet above the water. But as you can see, it flows in very rapidly. And then as the tide changes, it'll turn and flow back out in the other direction. Then got on the road. Next little town we came to, a little town called Concrete. And in Concrete, just past Concrete, the Baker River flowed, let's see, I forgot the name of the river. Anyway, Baker River, you'll notice there was a change in the color of the water. And the green water is from the glacial till. That's the one in the foreground out away from you. That's the main channel. And the Baker Bridge here and the river that's flowing in doesn't have the same concentration of glacial water.
Make sure nothing.
A little bit of signage at the fish hatchery. Trying to show you the clarity of the water in the river. It was flowing very rapidly and still beautiful color. There were lots of people along the shoreline at every little campsite. And there was tons and tons of people swimming in the water, and the water was ice cold, I can tell you. And again, I'll show you a little bit of the speed of the current, all the debris that had washed up on the little island out in the middle. I heard the ranger tell some folks that the flow was because the heat was so hot that the glaciers were melting very quickly. Oh, by the way, that's the damage to a pot that a bear did to a camper, or a camper's pot, not to the camper. Again, you can kind of see the flow of the water. This is where they put in the canoes and rafts to raft the river. They were keeping them from keeping people from putting in rafts at this point because the river had gotten so rapid, and it was kind of at a flood stage, and they didn't want people on the river because of the safety reason. It's a very beautiful sight, nice and cool. On this side of the mountains range, it was rather cool. It was probably in the 80s to mid 90s at this point. This is the environmental educational center at the park. A little stream coming in. This is one of the dams that is along the river. This dam and the structures, there's actually 3 dams along this river, and they provide all the power for Seattle. They're probably 50 to 60 miles away from Seattle, but that system of dams provides all the power for Seattle. You can see some of the glaciers still holding on in these pictures. They're just about gone. Spillway of the dam. And I thought this was really interesting. Gorge Creek flows into the main river. And this picture is kind of deceiving because it's over 1,000 feet down below where I'm standing. And it's cut a groove in that granite. That is granite rock. Over the many years that's been flowing. Get a little view of the creek from the bridge. I was pretty lucky there wasn't a lot of traffic coming through at this moment. A lot of people there had been. Kind of a lull. That's all glacial meltwater. And you'll see above the trees here, there's the main river. The mountains are spectacular. Everywhere you see the gray areas where they've had fire. And that's traveling from the dam on up the side of the mountain and looking back over the dam. That's the middle dam. There's one below this one, and then there's one upstream from this one as well. Still see the remnants of the glacier up there. A little bit of signage. That water's as clear as it can be if you get close to it, but it does have that turquoise green color to it because of the glacial till. Sorry for this next picture. Then we make it over the top of the mountain and we're headed through the pass. And this is some of the waterfalls that are closer up the pass. Road headed to the pass. Now, here's the interesting thing about this particular picture. You may have to rewind it, but if you see little white specks going across, those are not insects, those are flying bats. There's several of them in that picture, so if you rewind it and zoom in, you can see that they are flying bats. This is called Washington Pass. And this is the view that you see in the pass. Now the Overlook is well worth the trip. I saw this Overlook on Nick Zenter's YouTube channel that he had shown, and I decided I'd go look to find it, and it's well worth the trip to get there. The view is spectacular. Not a long hike, about 100 yards to get to the Overlook, but it's probably 3 or 4 miles across that opening, and you can see the highway that goes through the pass. Interesting thing, the peaks that you see there, when I was there were a couple of people climbing to the top of those peaks, and they did make it to the top. All right, I was actually able to take my binoculars and see them at the top, and they were waving at a film crew that was down below that had been filming them during the day. But it's getting on over toward afternoon. There's some people that were watching them climb to the top of that tallest peak. And this is across the valley from the peak. It's a very easy hike, walking trail to get to this view. The air is very clean, not hazy like it was down in the valley. Try to give you a good view of the valley there. Most of this rock that you see on the right is granite. I know this video is running kind of long, but it's well worth it. Probably should have broke it into 2 videos, but it's worth it to keep it in here. And that was the Washington Pass Overlook. Then once I left the Overlook, started down the highway, and what did I find? Another waterfall coming right down beside the highway. It was nice and cool too. And that's looking, the waterfall is behind me, and that's looking opposite of the waterfall. And start down the mountain from here. That's the same position. And it's about 10 miles down the mountain till you get in the valley here. And this is all glacial till that you see. That's what the glaciers pushed up into hills, and it's just masses of rocks. Some really cool sculptures. And here's some erratics that were pushed down by the glacier. And then you've got the Columbia River flowing through here. A totally different river system than what we were looking at with the glacial. And I made it to the Grand Coulee Dam. This was very interesting. I spent over 2 hours at the visitor center just talking to the folks in the visitor center, watching one of their movies that was extremely interesting about how the glacial floods carved all these formations. Very interesting, wonderful people. If you get a chance, stop in and see them, because they're very helpful. That lake stretches for miles. But it's interesting. The lake behind the dam, you pretty well saw that. And oh, by the way, it was only 111 degrees at that point of time. And just above that pool, there was a windmill garden. And the wind was blowing them. And it was very interesting to see the different things that people had made into windmills. This is the lake that's above the pool at the dam. So there's another dam above the dam, and it allows water to flow through the penstocks to get into the power generation. That's Steamboat Island. And if you'll notice the layers across the way, each one of those is a separate volcanic flow. You can see it even better. This is Dry Falls. When the glaciers were here, well, you can read for yourself. And water flowed over that dry fall at one time, but there's no water flowing there now. Actually, the river flows in the other direction. That's the outlet part of the Dry Falls. That's looking at it from above on the hillside, leading away. Well, here's the end of the video. Thank you for watching. Leave any comments if you will. And from here, I will make it to the hotel, and I'll get you another video for tomorrow. Thanks for watching.